Have you ever experienced that When we first tied the knot, I believed Daniel hung the moon. He was engaged, we would embark on genuine outings, and he would truly hear me as I recounted my experiences at the marketing agency. Fast forward to the present, and I find it nearly unbearable to share the same space with him. He arrives home from his accounting job, sinks into the couch, and loses himself in video games until the hour of sleep beckons. Greetings, is anyone there? Am I present in this moment? Yet, he seems oblivious to my presence now. I have exhausted every possible avenue to capture his gaze. Last year, I transformed my hair 3 times. I recently acquired a selection of new garments. I even proposed that we explore those couples workshops my friend Rachel has been so enthusiastic about. Nothing seemed to yield results. Daniel merely nodded, responding with a casual, "Sure, babe, whatever you want," before promptly returning to his PlayStation. It feels akin to cohabiting with a mechanical being that sporadically recalls the task of disposing of the refuse. Last month, the tipping point arrived as I orchestrated an extraordinary anniversary dinner. I'm envisioning an upscale dining experience, a stunning new dress, and all the trimmings. I went ahead and secured a reservation at that Italian restaurant downtown, the one that requires booking 2 months ahead of time. So, what transpired? Daniel arrived a full 45 minutes late, having completely lost track of time while immersed in yet another level of his infuriating game. I lingered over my drink, glancing at my phone, as the waiter cast me those sympathetic glances. I felt an overwhelming desire to end it all. For the past few weeks, I have been consulting with a therapist named Dr. Winters. Only I, not Brian. He remains unaware of my secret visits. Initially, it was merely a means of expression, you see. However, during our last session, she proposed that we consider couples therapy. I chuckled and inquired, "What's the purpose?" In that moment, the realization struck me. It serves no purpose. This union has come to an end. My feelings for him have faded. I have no fondness for him at all. Rather than dismissing Dr. Winter's suggestion that couples therapy was futile, I simply nodded and assured him that I would bring Daniel to our next session. Yet, unbeknownst to Daniel, I intend to seize that session as the moment to reveal my desire for a divorce. I understand, it may seem harsh. However, if I bring it up at home, he will likely either withdraw entirely or attempt to persuade me to remain. With Dr. Winters present, he will finally be compelled to hear my perspective. I have meticulously crafted every detail of my plan. The meeting is scheduled for Tuesday evening. I have been practicing the words I will express in my mind. In what ways I have evolved, while he remains unchanged. How our desires have evolved over time. How neither of us finds joy anymore, even if he refuses to acknowledge it. I envision his initial reaction will be one of disbelief, followed by a desperate plea for me to rethink my decision. Daniel despises change. His predictability is almost a given. Yet, I must remain resilient. I am worthy of more than this existence we are enduring. My friend Kayla believes I am embarking on a significant misstep. She remarked that you don't discard 7 years just because he seems a bit distant. Simple for her to claim when her spouse gazes at her as though she is a delectable treat. Rachel is increasingly supportive. Having navigated her own divorce last year, she reflects on it as the most empowering choice she has ever made. She's currently involved with a captivating yoga instructor who promptly responds to her messages. In the meantime, I find myself compelled to send Daniel 3 messages before he even recognizes my presence. I have yet to share this news with my parents. Brian is the object of their affection. My mother often remarks on how fortunate I am to have discovered such a steady partner. As though mere stability can suffice when one is suffocating in a sea of monotony. It seems likely that my father will align himself with Brian's perspective as well. He embodies a classic approach in that regard. Marriage is eternal, navigate your challenges, and so on. Yet, they are not bound to walk the path I tread. I do indeed. Yesterday, as Daniel was occupied with work, I took the time to pack a small bag. Only the essentials. Kayla mentioned that I could stay with her for a few days after I dropped the bomb, allowing Daniel some time to process everything. I assure you, I possess a heart. I am aware that this will cause him pain. Clearly, a part of me still holds feelings for him. Our journey began in the halls of college. Yet I find myself gasping for breath in this place. And I find myself unable to continue. A shift is necessary. This evening marks the final chapter of our ordinary life as a married couple, and he remains blissfully unaware. He returned home, offered me that familiar, absent-minded kiss on the cheek, and inquired about dinner. I prepared his beloved dish, lasagna. Perhaps it stems from a sense of guilt. He expressed his gratitude and promptly made his way to the living room to review his fantasy football lineup. Not a single inquiry about how my day unfolded. It feels as though I am a mere specter within the confines of my own dwelling. Tomorrow, a new chapter unfolds. I find myself attempting to summon sadness over it, yet predominantly, a sense of relief washes over me. At last, I can draw in a breath of fresh air once more. Is that truly dreadful? Perhaps. Yet, I have devoted far too much time fretting over Daniel's needs. Now is the moment to reflect on my needs. What I seek is freedom. Tuesday has arrived at last, and a wave of nausea washes over me. Daniel inquired about the sudden decision to schedule a therapy appointment for the two of us. I merely stated its significance, and I was unable to elaborate until we arrived at our destination. He cast me a peculiar glance, yet chose not to pursue it further. The journey to Dr. Winter's office was nothing short of excruciating. Daniel persisted in weaving small talk about a work project, entirely unaware of the explosive revelation I was poised to unleash upon our marriage. Only we remained in the desolate waiting room. Daniel flipped through an old magazine, its pages yellowed with time, while I discreetly checked my phone, seeking refuge from the weight of eye contact. My heart raced with such intensity that I was convinced he could hear its frantic rhythm. Dr. Winter summoned us precisely at 6. In her office, two identical beige armchairs are positioned gracefully, facing her desk. I chose to sit in the left chair once more for my individual sessions, as it had been my previous choice. It seems to be a matter of routine, perhaps. Dr. Winter offered a warm, reassuring smile typical of a seasoned therapist and inquired, "What brings you both here today?" She was well aware, naturally. We had gone over my plan last week, yet she feigned that this was all fresh information. I glanced at Brian, then turned my gaze to her, and in that moment, my throat became as rough as sandpaper. The words I had practiced countless times slipped away from my mind. "I wanted to come," Daniel said, breaking the silence. Stated that it held significance. He looked at me with anticipation, utterly unready for what lay ahead. It was then that the tears began to flow. Not the kind of crying that is delicate or pretty. Unrestrained, heart-wrenching sobs that surged beyond my control. I seek a dissolution of our marriage. I finally found the words to express my thoughts. I have reached my limit. I can no longer endure this. The room fell into an utter hush, save for the sound of my weeping. I anticipated Daniel would utter something, anything at all, perhaps a question, a declaration of my absurdity, or a plea for me to rethink my stance. Yet he remained there, utterly motionless, gazing at me with a face devoid of any emotion. Neither anger nor sadness, merely emptiness. It was disquieting. Dr. Winters took a moment to clear her throat. "Brian, would you care to share your thoughts on what was just expressed?" Daniel shifted his attention from me to Dr. Winters, and then returned his focus to me once more. His expression was utterly devoid of emotion, as if he were observing a rather tedious advertisement. In the most dispassionate tone I had ever encountered, he remarked, "All right, let's proceed to finalize the details." "Excuse me, could you clarify that? Is that all there is?" After 7 years of shared moments, all he could muster was a simple, resigned, "Okay?" For a fleeting moment, I ceased my tears, overwhelmed by sheer disbelief. This was not the way it was meant to unfold. Where did the emotion go? The confrontation? What about the drama? I had braced myself for every possible response, save for utter indifference. Tears streamed down my face, a tumultuous blend of frustration and pain consuming me. "You lack empathy," I exclaimed, my voice rising in frustration. "Lack of empathy. You seem unwilling to put in the effort to save our marriage." Yet again, there is nothing. He remained seated, utterly unaffected by my eruption. Dr. Winters endeavored to steer the dialogue, inquiring about Daniel's emotions, yet he scarcely participated. Brief responses, devoid of feeling. The conversation felt utterly one-sided, as if I were addressing an unyielding barrier. In that moment, I felt myself unraveling, mascara likely smeared across my cheeks, grappling with the growing sense of foolishness for daring to hope for something beyond this. The remainder of the session unfolded in a painfully awkward manner. Dr. Seth Winter proposed that we take a moment to reflect and consider arranging another session once our emotions have calmed. Daniel simply nodded. I found myself unable to meet his gaze any longer. This was not the resolution I had hoped for. This was not a moment of clarity for him, a dawning awareness of what was slipping away. He was already checked out, likely relieved that I was the one to pull the trigger. The journey back was enveloped in utter silence. Only the gentle rhythm of the wipers cutting through the soft patter of a light drizzle that had begun while we remained inside. I found myself stealing furtive glances at Brian, attempting to decipher the expressions on his face, yet there was an unsettling emptiness in his gaze. He fixed his gaze forward, both hands gripping the wheel, as if I were invisible in the car. As we finally rolled into our driveway, weariness enveloped me, a heavy cloak woven from tears and the taut threads of tension. As we entered the house, Daniel, without uttering a single word, swiftly retrieved a blanket from the hall closet and made his way directly to the couch. Not a single word of good night or a promise to converse tomorrow, just silence. I lingered in the doorway of our bedroom, anticipating a moment, a spark, yet he merely adjusted his pillow, rolled onto his side, turning his back to me, and that was all there was. The dialogue has concluded. The union has come to an end. Sleep eluded me that night. Whenever I shut my eyes, Brian's expressionless visage haunted me, a stark reminder of my vulnerability as I bared my soul. As dawn broke, I found myself entangled in a web of confusion and simmering anger. I anticipated his reaction would be one of distress, a fervent struggle for our connection, perhaps even a plea for me to remain. His utter indifference seemed almost like a personal affront. Did our union hold so little significance for him? Was he truly that grateful to be free of my presence? Rising with the dawn, I indulged in a lengthy shower, then departed for work while Daniel still slumbered. Space was essential for me to reflect, to unravel the events that had transpired. The office provided a refreshing diversion. I immersed myself in my projects, scarcely engaging in conversation with anyone. A handful of individuals caught sight of my crimson eyes, yet I attributed it to allergies. I found myself unprepared to share the tale of my divorce, particularly when I was still grappling with the very essence of what had transpired. As the hours passed, I found myself repeatedly glancing at my phone, anticipating a message from Brian. A message filled with frustration, a note steeped in sorrow, perhaps even suggestions for legal counsel in the event of a separation, whatever it may be. Yet, there was an absence of anything. Utter silence enveloped me, leaving me to wonder if our entire therapy session had been nothing more than a figment of my imagination. As the clock inched toward noon, I found myself compulsively glancing at my phone with relentless frequency, every 5 minutes feeling like an eternity. Had he truly severed our connection? No, my messages were being sent, but they weren't receiving any replies. Kayla reached out as well, keen to hear all about the therapy session and its outcomes. I ventured outside to answer the call, careful to keep my conversation hidden from my colleagues. He didn't even react, I told her, still in disbelief, not at all. He merely replied with an okay, and that was the end of it. That is strange, Kayla remarked after a moment of contemplation. Perhaps he is experiencing shock? Perhaps he has been experiencing similar feelings, yet struggled to find the words to express them to you? I had not even entertained that notion. Had Daniel been as discontented as I found myself? Could that be the reason he embraced the divorce with such ease? Yet, one must wonder, why not convey the message directly? Why must I take on the role of the villain? As I departed from the office, I had managed to persuade myself that Daniel had likely dedicated the day to packing up his belongings or conferring with attorneys. Perhaps even altering the locks. He appeared so frigid, so distant. Who could have anticipated the depths of his potential? I navigated the road home at a leisurely pace, mentally preparing my words for the inevitable confrontation. As I turned into our driveway, I noticed his car parked there. As usual, I entered to discover Daniel exactly as I had left him that morning, sprawled on the couch, engrossed in his PlayStation. He remained oblivious to my presence as I stepped inside. It felt as though everything remained the same. It feels as though I had not just requested a divorce less than a day prior. The ordinary atmosphere felt even more disquieting than any potential clash could have been. Have you had a chance to enjoy a meal? I inquired, merely to shatter the stillness. He ordered pizza, his gaze fixed unwaveringly on the screen before him. If you desire, there's a bit remaining in the fridge. Casual conversation. In the aftermath of yesterday's events, our conversations dwindled to mere pleasantries. I lingered in silence, anticipating his words, yearning for him to address our predicament, to utter something, anything at all. As he failed to appear, I found myself wandering into the kitchen, driven more by routine than by any true appetite. I approached the refrigerator, gazed vacantly at the pizza box within, and then shut the door once more, leaving it untouched. It was imperative that I spoke up. This strange state of uncertainty was far more unbearable than any dispute. I made my way back to the living room, my heart racing with each step. "Brian," I said, striving to maintain a calm tone. "Could we discuss the events of last night?" He halted his game, a minor triumph, and at last turned his gaze toward me. "What is there to talk about?" he inquired, his tone devoid of any inflection. "Are you suggesting all of it?" I declared, lowering myself onto the edge of the armchair that faced him. "I have expressed my desire for a divorce. Is there nothing you wish to express regarding that?" Daniel's gaze lingered on me, stretching into what seemed like an eternity. Then, with a disquieting calmness that sent shivers down my spine, he declared, "I already secured myself an apartment. I have removed my name from the lease here." The room began to whirl around me. What did he just utter? A dwelling, perhaps? So soon? And you? What is this? When did you find the time to accomplish that? I stumbled over my words. "This morning," he remarked, his calm demeanor only serving to heighten my frustration. "The property manager serves as a client. A unit was at his disposal. Executed the documents during the midday meal." A sensation washed over me, as if the very breath had been forcefully taken from my lungs. In the span of a single day, under the ticking clock of less than 24 hours, Daniel had fully embraced our divorce and set forth on a new path. Not a single tear, without a hint of hesitation. There will be no frantic efforts to salvage our union. Completed, finished, departing from this place. And so it was, I found myself uttering, my voice echoing with an unfamiliar distance. "After 7 years of shared moments, you're choosing to walk away? Is it really that simple?" Daniel shrugged. "Isn't that precisely what you desired? You claimed you had reached your limit." I parted my lips to speak, yet what words could possibly escape them? Indeed, I did express that. I had truly intended it, or so I believed. Yet, I was unprepared for his reaction to be so, truly. At long last, a conversation was anticipated, negotiations were on the horizon, and perhaps even a final effort at counseling awaited. Not this sterile, detached separation. Everything unfolded with astonishing speed after that moment. Daniel gathered his belongings that weekend while I remained at Kayla's, unable to witness him unravel the life we had built together. Upon my return Sunday night, I found the closet half bare, the PlayStation missing, and Brian had vanished as well. He placed his key on the kitchen counter, accompanied by a note indicating that his lawyer would reach out regarding the division of our assets. It was at that moment that the realization struck me profoundly. He had vanished, truly departed. He had made it appear effortless, as if leaving me behind was the most natural act imaginable. I found myself seated on my couch, encircled by the voids left by his belongings, became the place where I finally allowed myself to unravel entirely. Kayla arrived, a bottle of wine in one hand and a tub of ice cream in the other, fully prepared for an evening of heartfelt commiseration. Through tears, I kept repeating, "I just don't understand. How could he simply walk away like that? No conflict? Is there truly nothing?" "Perhaps he had already disengaged," Kayla proposed, filling my glass once more. "Men can be peculiar in that way. One can reach an emotional conclusion long before the physical departure occurs." Yet, that didn't resonate with Brian's usual tone. The Daniel I wed was attuned to his feelings, deeply emotional, in fact. He wept during poignant films. He stored every one of our anniversary cards in a box tucked away beneath the bed. How could that very man simply stroll away, devoid of even a solitary tear? The most challenging aspect was confronting the others. My parents were taken aback. They believed we embodied the ideal couple. Yet, my mother would insist that you two never fought, as if that were the hallmark of a successful marriage, rather than the truth that lay beneath. Two individuals who had lost the will to engage in conflict. Rachel exhibited a greater sense of practicality. She advised to secure a competent lawyer. Though the atmosphere may be cordial at present, such matters can swiftly turn contentious. Yet, it was not descending into chaos. Brian's attorney reached out to mine, and they traded a series of emails, with the whole process unfolding with an unsettling smoothness. There was no drama, no squabbles over the blender, nothing resembling the divorce nightmares recounted by friends. In the midst of chaos, work emerged as my sanctuary. I immersed myself in projects, working late into the night and arriving early each morning. Anything to escape the confines of that half-empty apartment, where the lingering scent of Brian's cologne still hung in the air. My supervisor observed my newfound commitment and entrusted me with a significant campaign to oversee. In an ordinary scenario, I would have felt a surge of excitement. In that moment, I found myself simply thankful for the diversion. Time slipped away, week by week. The divorce papers were progressing steadily. We had come to a mutual understanding to sell the apartment and divide the earnings. I began to explore more compact spaces situated nearer to the heart of the city. Life persisted, reshaping itself in the wake of Brian's absence. Yet, an incessant unease lingered within me, a haunting whisper suggesting that I had, in some way, relinquished my grip on the unfolding events. I was the one who initiated the divorce. It was I who found myself in a state of discontent. What was it about Daniel that made it seem as though he held all the power? Why was he flourishing while I was still grappling with the challenge of budgeting for groceries for just myself? As relayed by our mutual friends, he had already decorated his new abode, enrolled in a gym, and appeared to be doing quite well, indeed. In the interim, I found myself relying on takeout and the kindness of Kayla's understanding. One fateful night, fueled by an excess of wine, I found myself crossing a line I had promised never to breach. I cruised by his new apartment. It resided within one of those contemporary complexes, boasting a pool and a gym, far more appealing than our own abode. The glow of his lights illuminated the surroundings. The outline of him shifted within, a shadow dancing in the dim light. He stood tall, unbowed by despair. He found himself in an environment free from pizza boxes and unkempt laundry. He was merely existing, navigating the currents of his own existence. In my absence, I wept throughout the journey home, yet these tears held a distinct quality. Not quite sorrowful, you see. Increasingly furious. How could he possibly be fine while I remained in turmoil? How could he possibly move on so swiftly while I was still discovering his socks tucked away beneath the bed? It was unjust. This was not unfolding as I had envisioned. 3 months following that pivotal therapy session, the divorce was officially concluded. There were no grand confrontations in the courtroom, nor were there emotional reconciliations at the 11th hour. Only signatures on documents and a certified letter affirming my official status as no longer being Mrs. Daniel Taylor. I found myself once again as Wilson, 34, single, embarking on a new beginning. The apartment was snatched up in no time, providing me with a sufficient sum for a respectable down payment on a condo nearer to my workplace. It was diminutive, yet entirely my own, devoid of any vacant corners to evoke the absence of what once was. I adorned the walls with hues that Daniel would have despised and acquired an entirely new set of furnishings. A new beginning, that's how everyone referred to it. Rachel was adamant about hosting a divorce party for me, featuring a cake designed to resemble a shattered chain. It was an odd sensation to commemorate an event that lingered in the shadows of disappointment. Yet, I acquiesced to the flow of events. The images radiated joy on Instagram, capturing me beaming alongside my friends, a glass of champagne in hand, accompanied by the phrase "new beginnings." From those images, one would never suspect that I still found myself shedding tears in the shower on occasion. Re-entering the world of dating felt like embarking on a fresh journey of anguish. Rachel took it upon herself to craft my Tinder profile, adamantly declaring that it was high time I re-entered the dating scene. The men appeared either driven by desperation or merely in pursuit of fleeting connections. There was no one quite like Brian, who had always been a pillar of steadiness and reliability. It struck me as absurd that I was measuring everyone against him, especially since I was the one eager to escape that relationship. Meanwhile, Daniel appeared to be embracing life to the fullest. Our mutual friend Tom has shared that he recently received a promotion and is already seeing someone new, a yoga instructor he encountered at his gym. The news struck me with a weight I hadn't anticipated. I envisioned him yearning for me, coming to terms with what he had let slip away. Instead, he was progressing, evolving into a more refined version of himself in my absence. It's simply not fair, I lamented to Kayla as we sat over brunch. I was the one who sought the divorce. What is it about him that allows him to flourish? Kayla cast me that glance. The one who claims she's on the verge of revealing a truth I'd rather not confront. Perhaps it was due to his immediate acceptance rather than resistance? You sought an escape, Lex. It's unreasonable to feel anger over his lack of pleading for your presence. Yet, I found myself consumed by anger. Consumed by an illogical and unjust anger. For the truth lingered in the shadows of my heart, a part of me yearned for him to battle for our love, to demonstrate that I was indeed worth the struggle. His serene acceptance seemed to validate all my doubts, whispering that I wasn't special enough, intriguing enough, or lovable enough to inspire someone to remain. My new therapist, not Dr. Winters, who had observed the unraveling of my marriage, proposed that perhaps I had not truly moved on from Brian. "It seems you are still navigating the complexities of grief," she remarked softly. "It's entirely expected to feel this way after concluding a lengthy relationship." Yet, I wasn't mourning Brian, not in the traditional sense. I found myself mourning the elaborate narrative I had constructed around our divorce, the theatrics, the pleas, the belated understanding of what he was truly forfeiting. The truth was, his swift embrace of single life and effortless adjustment were far less gratifying than the picture I had painted in my mind. 1 year post-divorce, I unexpectedly encountered Daniel at a wedding hosted by a mutual friend. He appeared striking, truly striking. A fresh haircut, a sharp suit, and a confidence that had long been absent from his demeanor. He stood beside his new girlfriend, the yoga instructor. She possessed a beauty that seemed effortless, radiating with luminous skin and a laughter that flowed with ease. We engaged in clumsy banter at the bar. He inquired about my promotion, as news tends to circulate in tight-knit circles, and I reciprocated by asking about his new condo. He appeared truly pleased for my achievements, devoid of the resentment that still lingered within me. As we lingered in the air of light conversation, a realization struck me with the force of 1,000 revelations. He had been prepared to depart long before I was. The therapy session turned out to be less of a revelation than I had anticipated. It served as his passage from a union he had long since abandoned in spirit. Perhaps years prior, as I meticulously crafted my grand proclamation, he had been subtly withdrawing, merely biding his time for the signal to depart. My defining moment had been his sense of relief. As I observed him return to his girlfriend, laughter spilling from their shared moment, a peculiar blend of envy and acceptance washed over me. Daniel had progressed, for he had been in a state of transition for years. I found myself ensnared in confusion, for I had yet to grasp the essence of what had gone awry. I had cast the shadow of blame upon him for all that had transpired. His detachment, his gaming, his inattentiveness. I never paused to reflect that perhaps, just perhaps, I had driven him away long before he sought refuge in his PlayStation. Yet, that epiphany would have to wait for another time. This evening, I adorned my brightest smile, twirled with a groomsman, and shared a flawlessly filtered photo, captioned, "Celebrating Love." No one had to be aware that the individual I was still learning to embrace was, in fact, myself.